You've probably heard the phrase leadership pipeline, and people tell you it's important for the growth of your organization, but you're a little confused over what it really is and what to do with it. Well, over the past few years, I've trained hundreds of churches and organizations how to use this amazing leadership development tool. So stay tuned, because in today's video, I'm going to walk you through it, tell you exactly what it is, and tell you how you can capitalize on it. Hey guys, this is Mac Lake, and if you're new to this channel and you're looking for help in developing more and better leaders, then consider subscribing, because every Tuesday I bring you tips, tools, and techniques to help you grow as a leader developer. Now today I want to answer the question, what is a leadership pipeline? It's a popular term, but I've noticed that very few can really describe what it is or know what to do with it. So I want to explain its origin, give you an overview of the concept, and then give you a few tips to get you started so you can use it well. Now, before we dive into what it is, I do want to tell you that I do over 30 hours of training with organizations, walking them through step by step this entire concept and helping them build out an intentional leadership development strategy. So in this video, I can only give you a basic overview in a few minutes. So if you want more information on the overall process, then I'll provide a link in the description below. You can go there and check it out. Now, the leadership pipeline is a concept that was originated by an HR consultant and teacher named Walt Mahler back in the 70s. He was working with GE at the time, and Mahler wanted to identify the changes that were required to be successful at different levels of leadership in the organization. So he suggested that there are specific, what he called leadership crossroads in every organization. And every time someone moved from one crossroad to the next, or one level to the next, there were certain transitional requirements. So he suggested that every time a leader moves from one level to another, then they have to learn new skills, new values, and new ways to use time. Makes sense, right? Okay. But a lot of times we don't think about that. Now, as he was developing this whole concept, he built a friendship with one of his students named Steven Drotter. Drotter took the leadership pipeline concept, he added his contributions to it, and then later on, two top succession planning coaches, James Noel and Ram Charan, they added their contributions to it, and along with Drotter, they wrote the book, The Leadership Pipeline, back around 2000, 2001. Now, since its release, it's had a huge, significant impact in the business world, and around mid-2000s, it began to make its way into the church world as well. In fact, in 2004, when I went to work for Seacoast Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Pastor Greg Surratt asked me to read the book, and he handed it to me. He said, "Hey, figure this out for the church." Now, I got to be honest with you, the book is a tough read. It's thick and it's aimed at big international corporations. But the concepts of this book transform the way I think about leadership development and transform the way I think about discipleship as well. So let me give you an overview of the leadership pipeline. Now, rather than giving you the technical descriptions of the levels that are used in the book, I want to show you what we put together years ago, which is what I call a 5-level generic leadership pipeline. Now, depending on the size of your organization or your church, you may have a 4, 5, 6, or 7 levels in your pipeline. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show you 5 levels, which are really most common for most organizations to use 5. So the leadership pipeline concept says that every organization should have a pipeline from which they draw and develop new leaders and raise them up to new levels. The bottom of the leadership pipeline begins with people who are leading themselves. It's the lead yourself level. And at the lead yourself level, you're simply serving on a team or participating in a group. In a church, I always like to say that this is where basic discipleship is taking place, because people are learning to lead themselves at that level. Now, in a company or a nonprofit, these are your workers who don't have responsibility for leading anyone else. These are people who are carrying out the tasks. All right, now, after learning to lead yourself, then an individual can flow up the pipeline to the next level to leading others. This means the scope of the responsibility is over a small group of people in the organization. They're now beginning the process of leading a team or leading a group. So for example, in a church, this could be leading a small group of adults, students, or even children. It may be leading a team of greeters or leading a cafe team, but you're providing leadership over a small team. In an organization, this may be the team lead, a supervisor of a small team, something like that. All right, now after you learn to lead at that level, some people are going to flow up to the third level of the leadership pipeline, which is leading leaders. Now the leader has advanced beyond leading a team, and their scope of responsibility now is leading a group of leaders. Their primary responsibility at this level is equipping and encouraging the leaders under them to make them more effective at leading their teams. Also, at this level, they become a resource for leaders when they run into difficulties or challenges that they don't know how to solve on their own. So, the leading leaders level in a church would be, for example, a small group coach, a student ministry coach, a worship service coach, something like that. Some people use their term coordinator rather than coach. It doesn't really matter. It's just the concept is you're leading leaders at that level. In an organization, this may be a manager who provides leadership over a few supervisors. But it's important to look at the definition and remember at this level the role is designed to lead leaders, not provide administrative support. They're actually leading at a higher level. So we have to understand that each level of the leadership pipeline expands a leader's scope of responsibility. Now, the fourth level of the leadership pipeline is leading departments. Most organizations divide themselves up into various departments. So for example, in a church, there's a small groups ministry, a children's ministry, student ministry, worship ministry, or outreach ministry. So the leaders at this level might be group director, student director, worship director, for example. Now, in an organization, this would be like a department leader, like a sales department leader, communications department leader. Now, I define the scope of responsibility at this level this way. Leaders at this level are providing visionary leadership for a department of an organization with responsibility of working through the leaders of leaders. It's important to understand that because at this level, you need to learn to work on the business, not in the business. So it's really important that a director or the leader of a department is not down doing the details, but they're working through the structure that's underneath them. Now, the final level of the leadership pipeline is leading the organization. The organizational leader provides visionary leadership for the entire organization. Now, this doesn't have to be a single leader. It could be a team of people. So, for example, you might have at this level an executive team or a senior leadership team. All right, so that's the leadership pipeline. Now, let me give you 3 tips for using it effectively. Tip number 1 is define the levels of your organization. Look at the various departments and then work to align the names of the levels in every department at every level. So for example, in a church I was working with last week, they chose 5 levels and they named them team member, leader, coach, director, and senior leadership team. And they align those across every department of their church. This gives you an intentional developmental pathway that you can use to develop leaders in your organization. And I've discovered that most organizations, what they do is they structure for function, but they never think about structuring for development. And the leadership pipeline is intended to help you structure for development and give you a strategy for developing leaders from within your organization rather than having to hire from the outside. And that's why I love this concept, because I believe we have defaulted to the easy route of buying leaders from the outside rather than building leaders from within. So the leadership pipeline concept gives you an idea of how to build a funnel for developing leaders from within. Tip number 2. Don't try to move everyone through every level. The leadership pipeline is not designed to move as many people up as possible. It's simply a structured pathway that helps you move those who have the call and the competencies to move to new levels of leadership. So don't try to move everybody. Tip number 3 is move people through your leadership pipeline sequentially. Remember that each level of your leadership pipeline should have its own specific competencies and commitments. And so if you let somebody skip levels, then it's undermining the developmental process of that individual that you're working with, and they're just not going to be able to lead well when we allow them to skip levels. So, hey, that's the history of the leadership pipeline. It's an overview of the leadership pipeline and 3 tips for using it properly. For those who are interested, I put a link down below to the leadership pipeline book, as well as a book summary of the leadership pipeline book. And also, if you're interested in having me work with your organization to help you build out an intentional leadership development strategy, I've put a link down below for that as well. So I hope this video has been helpful. Now that I've rolled out what the leadership pipeline is, I'm going to be doing a lot more videos that'll help you build out this concept in your organization or your church. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click the like button, share this with your team, and work to build out your leadership pipeline. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell so that you'll be notified every Tuesday when new videos come out. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.